Ambassador Rylith had seen many species join the Galactic Council in her 300 years of service. She had watched the proud Kreeth present their war fleets. She had observed the clever Mithrani demonstrate their shield technology. She had even been present when the ancient Vorath shared their wisdom with younger races. But nothing had prepared her for the humans. The Council had sent her to assess humanity's military strength. This was standard procedure for any species seeking membership. The Council needed to know what they were welcoming into their family of stars. Rylith had expected something ordinary. Perhaps soldiers with decent weapons and acceptable discipline. After all, humans had only discovered faster-than-light travel 60 years ago. They were young. They were inexperienced. How dangerous could they really be? She arrived at the Mars training facility on a cold morning. The red dust swirled around her transport as it landed. A human general named Harrison met her at the gate. He was a tall man, with gray hair and calm eyes. He smiled warmly and shook her hand in the human fashion. "Welcome to Camp Reynolds, Ambassador," he said. "We're honored to have you observe our training exercises today." Rylith followed him through the facility. Human soldiers moved around her in organized groups. They carried their weapons with ease. They walked with purpose. Already, something felt different about them. But Rylith could not identify what it was. General Harrison led her to an observation platform overlooking a large training area. Below, a mock city had been constructed from metal and concrete. Buildings rose 3 stories high. Streets wound between them like gray rivers. And moving through those streets were human soldiers. "This is urban warfare training," Harrison explained. "Standard stuff for our infantry units." Rylith activated her recording device and watched. The exercise began with a loud alarm. Enemy targets appeared in windows and doorways. The human soldiers moved immediately. They did not hesitate. They did not discuss. They simply acted. A squad of 8 soldiers flowed through the streets like water. They covered each other with perfect timing. When one moved, another watched. When one fired, another was already advancing. Their communication was minimal. Hand signals, brief words. Somehow, they all knew exactly what to do. Rylith watched a soldier take a hit from a training round. The impact struck his shoulder hard enough to leave a mark. He did not stop. He did not even slow down. He shifted his weapon to his other hand and kept fighting. Another soldier climbed a building using only his hands and feet. He moved up the wall like an insect, finding holds that Rylith could barely see. In seconds, he was on the roof. In seconds more, 3 enemy targets were eliminated. The exercise lasted 20 minutes. When it ended, the human soldiers gathered in the street below. They were breathing hard. Sweat covered their faces. But they stood straight. They stood ready. They looked like they could do it all again. Rylith turned to General Harrison. Her voice was carefully controlled. "These soldiers, what is their classification?" Harrison looked confused by the question. "Classification? Yes. Are these your elite forces? Your special warriors? The ones chosen for the most difficult missions?" Harrison laughed. It was a genuine laugh. Not meant to mock her. "These? No. Ambassador. These are just army regulars. Garrison troops. Mostly. Some of them have only been in service for 2 years." Rylith felt something cold move through her body. She had observed military forces from 30 different species. She had seen the elite guards of the Kreth hegemony. She had watched the legendary sun warriors of the Dreth. None of them moved like these humans. None of them showed such controlled aggression, such natural violence. And these were just the regulars. "General Harrison," she said slowly, "if these are your regulars, what are your elite forces like?" Harrison's smile faded slightly. His eyes became thoughtful. "We call them special forces, Ambassador. But I'm not authorized to discuss them in detail." "Why not?" "Because most of what they do is classified. Even I don't know everything they're capable of." Rylith returned to the council 3 days later. She submitted her report immediately. The council chamber fell silent as the senior members read her assessment. The silence stretched for a long time. Finally, Counselor Dremoth of the Vorath spoke. He was ancient even by Vorath standards. His voice carried the weight of thousands of years. Ambassador Rylith. You describe these human soldiers as displaying extreme aggression, remarkable endurance, and unusual pain tolerance. You note that they operate with minimal communication yet perfect coordination. You observe that they continue fighting through injuries that would disable members of most Council species. Yes, Counselor. And you confirm that these were standard infantry units? Not specially selected warriors? The human general was very clear on this point. These were garrison troops, regular soldiers. Some were quite young by human standards. Dremoth leaned forward. Then I must ask the question that troubles me greatly. If these are their regulars, what precisely are their irregulars? The human ambassador was present in the chamber. Her name was Chen Wei, a small woman with sharp eyes and an unreadable expression. She had been listening quietly throughout the discussion. Now, she smiled. It was not a threatening smile. It was not meant to intimidate. But something about it made Rylith's scales tighten against her body. Counselor Dremoth, Ambassador Chen said, humanity has been fighting wars for 200,000 years. We have spent all of that time learning how to be better at violence. Our regular soldiers are dangerous because our entire species is dangerous. It is simply who we are. She paused. Our special forces are what happens when we take the most dangerous among us and make them even more dangerous. I would be happy to arrange a demonstration, but I would recommend against it. Some things are better left to the imagination. The Council voted to grant humanity full membership that day. The vote was unanimous. Not because they wanted humans as allies, but because no one wanted them as enemies. And somewhere in the back of every Council member's mind, the same question lingered. What had they just invited into their peaceful galaxy? The Veil Corps came without warning. Their ships appeared at the edge of the Thesson system like black teeth against the stars. 60 warships, 200 transport vessels. An invasion force of 60,000 soldiers, ready to take what they wanted. Thessan 4 was a small world. 3 million Dreth colonists lived there, farming the purple fields and mining the rich mountains. They had no army. They had no warships. They had only a small police force and a desperate call for help sent to the Galactic Council. The Council received the call and began to debate. For 6 days, the representatives argued. The Vorath counseled patience. The Kreeth demanded more information. The Mithrani calculated odds and found them unfavorable. Meanwhile, Veil Corps soldiers landed on Thessan 4 and began killing civilians. On the 7th day, humanity acted. The 14th Terran Expeditionary Force did not wait for Council authorization. 8,000 soldiers loaded onto transport ships. 200 armored vehicles rolled into cargo bays. And then, they did something that made every other species in the galaxy gasp in disbelief. They used an unstable faster-than-light route. The path through subspace to Thesson was dangerous. Radiation levels were high. Navigation was difficult. A small error could scatter a ship across 1 million kilometers of empty space. Every species in the Council avoided such routes. The risk was simply too great. The humans traveled it in 31 hours. Colonel Sarah Okonkwo stood on the bridge of the transport ship as it dropped out of faster than light. Through the view screen, she could see Thesson 4. Smoke rose from several cities. Veil Corps ships hung in orbit like vultures. All units, she said into her communicator. We are weapons-free. These people came here to hurt civilians. Show them what happens when they do. Rekid. The Battle of Thesson 4 began within the hour. The humans landed in 3 waves across the planet's main continent. The Veil Corps commanders were confused at first. Their intelligence had told them that Council forces would take weeks to arrive. They had planned for a slow, comfortable conquest. Instead, they got war. The first night, human soldiers attacked a Veil Corps supply depot. They came out of the darkness without sound. They killed the guards with knives and silenced weapons. They destroyed 2 months of supplies in 20 minutes. Then they disappeared. The Vile Corps commander sent 300 soldiers to find them. Those soldiers never returned. By the third day, the Vile Corps learned to fear the night. Human soldiers seemed to see in darkness. They moved through shadows like ghosts. They struck without warning and vanished without trace. Vale Corps soldiers began refusing to patrol after sunset, but the days were no safer. Human armored vehicles smashed through Vile Corps defensive lines. Human infantry followed, moving with that strange coordination that Ambassador Rylith had observed on Mars. They advanced through fire that would have stopped any other force. They took wounds that would have killed any other species. And they kept coming. Council observers arrived on the 8th day. They watched from orbit, recording everything. What they saw changed their understanding of warfare forever. A Mithrani military analyst named Vex was among the observers. He focused his sensors on a human squad defending a small town. The squad had 12 soldiers. They were facing 200 Vale Corps. The Vale Corps attacked in waves. The humans held their ground. Hour after hour, they fought. Vex watched a human soldier take 3 wounds in her arm. She wrapped the arm with bandages and kept shooting. He watched another human carry 2 wounded comrades to safety, then returned to the fighting line immediately. After 9 hours, the Vile Corps retreated. They had lost 80 soldiers. The human squad had lost 2. Vex ran the numbers again and again. They did not make sense. 12 soldiers should not be able to hold against 200. But the humans had done it through sheer determination. They simply refused to die. They refused to run. They refused to stop. On the 11th day, the Vale Corps broke. It did not happen slowly. It happened all at once. Vale Corps units across the planet began surrendering. Their commanders sent desperate messages to their fleet, begging for evacuation. Intercepted communications revealed the truth. The Vale Corps were afraid. They had a name for the humans now. They called them the unceasing, the ones who do not stop, the ones who fight through pain and exhaustion and fear, the ones who treat death as an inconvenience rather than an ending. The Vale Corps fleet retreated without recovering most of their ground forces. 38,000 Vale Corps soldiers were dead or captured. Their invasion had become a disaster. Their pride had become shame. Humanity lost 1,847 soldiers. Each death was mourned. Each name was remembered. But the mission was complete. The San 4 was free. Colonel Okonkwo stood in the ruins of the planet's capital city. Dreth civilians emerged from hiding to thank the human soldiers. Children who had been told they would die were now laughing and playing among the liberators. A council representative approached Okonkwo. He was a Vozani named Tereth, and his scales were pale with shock. "Colonel," he said quietly. Okonkwo looked at him with tired eyes. "No, sir. These were Marines and Army infantry, line units, regular soldiers." Tereth was silent for a long moment. "Your regular soldiers defeated a force nearly 8 times their size. Your regular soldiers made 60,000 Vile Corps run in fear. Your regular soldiers did this. People right a day. Number 5. Yes, sir. Then I pray to every god in the galaxy that we never see your special forces in action." Okonkwo did not smile. She did not boast. She simply looked out at the soldiers helping Dreth families find food and shelter. "Pray harder," she said. "Because if you ever do see them, it means things have gotten very bad indeed." Tereth returned to the council with his report. The senior members read it in silence. When they finished, no one spoke for several minutes. Finally, Councillor Drameth made a suggestion. The council should create a new classification for human military forces. Regular human soldiers would be listed as extreme threat. Human special forces would be listed as existential danger. The vote was unanimous. And somewhere in the dark between stars, a small ship carried 47 quiet professionals toward a crisis that no one would ever hear about. They were not Marines. They were not Army infantry. They were something else entirely. They were what humans called special forces, and the galaxy was not ready for them. Counselor Rylith could not sleep. For 3 months, after the Battle of Thesan 4, she lay awake each night, thinking about the same thing. If human regulars could defeat an army 8 times their size, what could their special forces do? She decided to find out. The investigation was classified at the highest level. Only 6 council members knew about it. Rylith assembled a team of intelligence analysts from 12 different species. Their mission was simple: learn everything possible about human special forces. It took them 2 years to gather the information. What they found kept them awake at night too. The first challenge was simply understanding what special forces meant. Humans had many names for these soldiers: Navy SEALs, Green Berets, SAS, Spetsnaz, Delta Force, Rangers, Commandos. Each name represented a different group with different skills, but they all shared something in common. They were selected from soldiers who were already exceptional. Then, they were made into something more. Rylith found a retired human general willing to speak with her. His name was James Morrison, and he had commanded Special Operations Forces for 30 years. They met in a small room on a neutral space station. Morrison was old now, his hair white and his hands steady. He spoke calmly, as if discussing the weather. "Selection is the first step," he explained. "We take soldiers who have already proven themselves in regular units. The best of the best. Then, we test them. What kind of tests?" Rylith asked. "Physical tests, mental tests, emotional tests. We push them until they break. Most people have a limit, a point where they decide they cannot continue. We find that limit, and we show them it does not exist." "How many pass these tests?" Morrison smiled slightly. "Depends on the program. Some have a 70% failure rate. Some have 90%. The point is not to find soldiers who are naturally superior. The point is to find soldiers who refuse to quit." Rylith recorded everything. Later, she obtained partial files on Special Forces training programs. The details made her scales go cold. Trainees were forced to swim in freezing water for hours. They were deprived of sleep for days. They were made to carry heavy loads across impossible distances. They were taught to fight, to shoot, to kill with any weapon or no weapon at all. They were dropped into hostile environments with minimal equipment and told to survive. The ones who finished were different from when they started. "We break them down," Morrison had told her. "Then we rebuild them into something else. Something that can operate alone, or in small teams. Something that can complete missions that regular soldiers cannot even imagine." Rylith found records of Special Forces operations. Many files were incomplete. Many were still classified even after decades. But the fragments painted a terrifying picture. A team of 6 operators eliminated a planetary defense network in one night. They killed 300 guards and disabled every weapon system. Then they escaped without leaving evidence. A single operator spent 40 days behind enemy lines during a war. Alone. With limited supplies. He destroyed 14 enemy installations and killed over 200 soldiers before extraction. A 4-person team rescued hostages from a fortified compound in under 7 minutes. The compound had 200 guards. None of the guards survived. All of the hostages did. The more Rylith learned, the more afraid she became. She met with a Dreth intelligence minister named Kovith. He had been studying humans since they joined the council. His research had led him to similar conclusions. "The regular human soldiers are dangerous because they do not give up," Kovith said. "They keep fighting when others would surrender. This is frightening enough. But special forces are something beyond this." "How so?" "Regular soldiers are hammers. They break things through force and determination. They can remove one person from a room full of enemies without anyone knowing. They can collapse an entire military operation with a handful of well-placed actions. They are not just dangerous, they are precise. Koveth leaned forward. I spoke with a human veteran once. He told me that special forces do not win battles. They prevent battles. They eliminate threats before they become threats. They solve problems so quietly that no one knows there was a problem to solve. Rylith thought about this for a long time. An enemy you could see was frightening. An enemy you never saw until it was too late was something else entirely. She completed her report and presented it to the council in closed session. The chamber was silent as she spoke. The senior members listened with growing unease. Human special forces represent a unique capability in the known galaxy, she concluded. No other species has developed anything comparable. They operate in small teams, or alone. They are trained to survive any environment and defeat any enemy. They do not fight wars. They end them. Counselor Dreamath raised a question. What do you recommend, Ambassador? Rylith had thought about this carefully. I recommend we create a new diplomatic protocol. We must ensure that no member species ever provokes humanity into deploying their special forces. The consequences would be devastating. The council debated for 3 days. In the end, they passed a classified resolution. It was called Doctrine 7. The text was simple. Under no circumstances should any council member take action that would result in the deployment of human special operations forces. Any species that violates this doctrine does so at their own risk. The council will not intervene on their behalf. The document was distributed to every senior official in the council. It came with a warning. This information was not to be shared with the general public. The council did not want to cause panic. But among those who knew, the word spread in whispers. Do not anger the humans. Do not threaten them. Do not make them send the quiet ones, because the quiet ones did not fight like soldiers. They fought like nightmares. And nightmares did not follow the rules of war. The space station, Noth Varak, was supposed to be safe. It floated in neutral territory, hosting diplomatic meetings between council species. 200 ambassadors and officials lived there, working to maintain peace in the galaxy. Then the radicals came. The Kreeth Liberation Front was a small group with big hatred. They believed that humans were dangerous monsters who had no place in civilized space. They wanted humanity expelled from the council, and they were willing to kill to make it happen. 4,000 armed soldiers seized the station in less than an hour. They locked down all exits. They disabled communications. They gathered the hostages and scattered them across 12 different decks. Then they sent their demands. Remove humanity from the council. If the demand was not met in 72 hours, hostages would begin dying, starting with the 12 humans among them. Council forces gathered outside the station. Warships from 6 different species formed a blockade. Ground assault teams prepared for an attack. But everyone knew the truth. Any assault would be a bloodbath. The station was built like a fortress. The corridors were narrow. The defenders knew every corner. And the hostages were spread out specifically to prevent rescue. Any traditional military operation would result in hundreds of dead civilians. The council debated. The hours passed. Inside the station, the hostages waited to die. On the second day, the human ambassador made a formal request. We ask permission to resolve this situation. The council chamber fell silent. Everyone knew what this meant. Doctrine 7 existed for a reason. Human special forces had never been deployed in council space. No one knew exactly what would happen if they were. Counselor Dreamath asked the question on everyone's mind. What guarantees can you offer for the safety of the hostages? The human ambassador, a man named David Park, looked directly at the council. We guarantee nothing. War has no guarantees. But we have done this before. Many times. We know how to save people. The debate lasted 6 hours. In the end, the vote was close. Permission was granted by a margin of 3 votes. A single condition was attached. Council observers would be allowed to monitor the operation. Whatever happened on Nothvaruk would be recorded for history. 47 humans arrived on a small transport ship. They did not look impressive. They wore simple black uniforms with no markings. They carried equipment that the observers could not identify. They spoke quietly among themselves and did not boast or threaten. The observer team was led by a Vozani military scholar named Tereth. He had witnessed the Battle of Thesan IV. He thought he understood human warfare. He was wrong. The operation began at station midnight. The lights inside Nothvaruk flickered once, then went dark. The station's internal sensors failed. Every single one. The observers watching from outside lost all visibility. For 23 minutes, there was only silence. Tereth tried to contact the team. No response. He tried to scan the station. Nothing worked. The entire structure had become a black hole of information. Something was happening inside, but no one could see what. Then the lights returned. The first voice on the communication channel was calm and professional. Station secure. All hostages accounted for. Requesting medical teams for civilians. Tereth did not believe it. He could not believe it. He demanded a full status report. The numbers came in slowly. 200 hostages rescued. All alive. All unharmed, except for minor injuries sustained before the rescue. 12 humans among them, safe and confused about what had happened. 4,000 Kreeth radicals neutralized. 3,412 dead. The rest unconscious or restrained. The fighting had taken place across all 12 decks simultaneously. It had lasted less than half an hour. Human casualties. 2 wounded. 0 killed. Tereth boarded the station 3 hours later. He walked through corridors that still smelled of smoke and blood. He saw the bodies of Kreeth soldiers lying where they had fallen. Many of them had not even raised their weapons. They had died before they knew they were under attack. He found the human team in a small room near the station's center. They were sitting quietly, cleaning their equipment. Some were eating. One was reading a book. They looked tired, but calm. They looked ordinary. The team's commander was a woman named Hayes. She had gray eyes and short brown hair. She stood when Tereth entered and shook his hand politely. "Commander Hayes," Tereth said, "I have studied military tactics for 200 years. I have seen armies clash across star systems. I have witnessed battles that changed the course of history. But I have never seen anything like what happened here tonight." Hayes said nothing. She waited. "How?" Tereth asked. "How did 47 soldiers defeat 4,000 in 23 minutes? How did you save every hostage? How is this possible?" Hayes considered the question. When she spoke, her voice was quiet. "Training, sir. We just trained differently than others." Tereth stared at her. He looked at the other operators. They had returned to their work, cleaning weapons, checking equipment. One was now sleeping, his head resting against the wall. "You consider this routine," Tereth said slowly. "This impossible thing you have done. You consider it routine. Every mission is serious, sir. We do not take any of them lightly. But this is what we do. This is what we have always done. We go where we are needed. We solve problems. Then, we leave." Tereth returned to the council with his observations. He submitted a full report detailing everything he had seen. The senior members read it in silence. When they finished, several of them refused to speak for the rest of the day. Doctrine 7 was updated. The new version included a simple addition. Any species that provokes human special forces deployment has chosen their own destruction. The Council offers no sympathy. The Kreeth Liberation Front was dissolved within a month. Its surviving members surrendered voluntarily. When asked why, they gave the same answer. They had seen what happened on Nothvaruk. They had seen what humans could do. They did not want to see it again. And somewhere in the galaxy, 47 quiet professionals returned to their training facilities. They did not celebrate. They did not boast. They simply prepared for the next mission, because there was always a next mission, and they would always be ready. 10 years passed after the silence of Nothvarak. The galaxy changed in ways no one had expected. The Vialcor Dominion, the same empire that had invaded Thesson IV, sent an ambassador to Earth. He came not with threats, but with a request. The Vialcor wanted an alliance. They wanted human soldiers standing beside them, not against them. The Council was shocked. The Vialcor had been humanity's enemies. They had lost tens of thousands of soldiers to human forces. Why would they seek friendship now? The Vialcor ambassador explained it simply. We have calculated the odds of every possible future. In futures where we oppose humanity, we lose everything. In futures where we stand with humanity, we survive. This is not complicated. This is survival. The alliance was signed within a year. Other species began to change their thinking as well. Fear slowly transformed into something else. Not love, exactly. Not trust, but respect. The galaxy began to see humans not as monsters, but as protectors. A new tradition started among council species. Military academies began sending students to observe human training. They could not copy what humans did. Most species lacked the physical ability or the cultural mindset, but they could learn to understand. A young Dreth officer named Keleth was among the first observers. She spent 6 months at a human military base, watching soldiers train. She kept detailed notes. She asked countless questions. One day, she approached a human drill instructor named Sergeant Brooks. He was a large man, with scarred hands and kind eyes. She had watched him push recruits to their limits and then help them stand up again. Sergeant Brooks, she said, I have been trying to understand something for months. What makes humans so effective at war? Your bodies are not the strongest. Your senses are not the sharpest. Yet you defeat enemies who should be superior to you. Why? Brooks looked at her for a long moment. Then he sat down on a bench and gestured for her to join him. You want the honest answer? Please. We spent 200,000 years fighting each other. Before we had spaceships, we had swords. Before swords, we had rocks. Humans have been at war since the first human picked up a stick and hit another human with it. Keleth listened carefully. The galaxy is new to us, Brooks continued. Aliens are new to us. Faster than light travel is new to us. But war? War is old. War is in our bones. We have been practicing longer than anyone else in this galaxy. Every tactic, every strategy, every trick you can imagine. Humans have tried it. Humans have failed at it. Humans have perfected it. That sounds like a curse, Keleth said quietly. Brooks nodded. It is. Trust me. We know what we are. We are not proud of every part of our history. We have done terrible things to each other. But that history made us what we are today. And what we are today is very, very good at protecting the people we care about. Counselor Ryleth retired after 50 years of service. She spent her final years writing her memoirs. In them, she described her first visit to Mars, watching those garrison troops train. She wrote about her fear, her confusion, her slow journey toward understanding. Her final chapter was titled, The Nature of Humanity. In it, she wrote words that would be quoted for centuries. I thought I was observing soldiers that day on Mars. I was wrong. I was observing predators who had learned to wear uniforms and follow laws. The most terrifying thing about humanity is not their special forces. It is not their weapons or their tactics or their determination. It is that their special forces are simply the logical extension of what every human has the potential to become. They are not different from other humans. They are what all humans could be, if pushed far enough. And that is the most frightening truth of all. The book became required reading at every council military academy. Years passed. The galaxy grew safer. Pirates who once terrorized shipping lanes disappeared. Hostile species learned to negotiate instead of invade. The threat of human response made everyone more careful. But the work never ended. On a quiet night, a small ship traveled through the darkness between stars. Inside, 47 operators prepared for a mission that no one would ever hear about. They checked their weapons. They reviewed their plans. They spoke in low voices about home and family and the small, ordinary things that made life worth living. They were not heroes in their own eyes. They were simply professionals. People who had found something they were good at and dedicated their lives to it. The fact that their job involved violence did not make them proud. It simply made them necessary. The mission would be dangerous. Some of them might not return. They had accepted this truth long ago. Every operator knew that they might give their lives to save strangers. They did it anyway. Because that was what humans did. The galaxy had learned to sleep peacefully. Children on 100 worlds closed their eyes without fear. Families built homes without wondering if invaders would come. Peace had become normal. Safety had become expected. Most of those peaceful sleepers did not know why they were safe. They did not know about the quiet professionals who stood between them and the darkness. They did not know about the missions that happened in secret. The threats eliminated before they could grow. The wars prevented before they could start. And that was exactly how the quiet ones wanted it. They did not fight for glory. They did not fight for recognition. They fought because 200,000 years of human history had created them for exactly this purpose. The ship vanished into the darkness. The mission began. And somewhere in the peaceful galaxy, people went about their lives, never knowing how close they had come to danger, never knowing that humanity was watching, always ready.